Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast. Talk about all things in the world of software development, AI, and all those goodies. I'm one of your co-hosts, James Montemagno, and with me, as always, the one, the always, the illustrious Frank Krueger. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, James, I am the other co-host. I've never been called illustrious before. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I will think for the next 30 minutes about a good adjective to apply to you, the great James.
There are none.
See, I don't have your vocabulary.
I bought something on Amazon.
Oh, my favorite topic.
So I have one of those smart lock thingies, you know? And the smart lock thingy takes 4 AA batteries, and I put it on the... Yeah, I know. I had put it on the IoT Wi-Fi, and it was really struggling, like the 2.4 band. And I don't know, because I have like the mesh network, all this stuff. So it ran out of batteries really quick. And I was like, what the heck? That's crazy. It's only been 2 weeks. That's unacceptable. But I was like, I'll get some rechargeable batteries. That's what I'll do, because then you can swap them. But then I changed it to my normal one, which is a dual band, the 5 and the 2.4. And it's like completely fine. So I don't know. But anyways, I got this. Look at this cute little container. It's a little container. I'm going to open it up. Oh, see, that's like...
it's a lot of batteries. Is it charging
8?
All eight at the same time?
All 8 at the same time. And It is USB-C. It's a USB-C case. But let me plug it in, because it's
What an anachronism. Modern tech meets 1970s tech.
It is
60s. When did AA batteries come out? Please write it.
So adorable. You see that?
Oh, I love it.
So it does like
part of the reason I hate rechargeable batteries is all the chargers are terrible. Yeah. If you're just listening to the podcast, he has a cute little black case, and it's showing actual little color LEDs for each of the batteries.
And if you sit in front, like some of them will turn green, and it's like do when it's green. It should be green. It was like, I don't know, it was like $15 and has like the whole kit, caboodle, the whole thing in the case, and does the thing. It's kind of like magnety and stuff like that. So I haven't had to use it yet, because the new one's been okay. So we'll see how long they last. But anyways,
that's good. But that's the nicest charger I've seen so far. Usually they're giant, only charge 4 batteries at the same time and take up all 10 sockets, because it plugs into the wall and doesn't even have an extension. I'm trying to USB-C everything. Like I'm finally living in the 2010s and updating everything to USB-C. Except I was just recently traveling. And I was great, because I only packed USB-C cables. And then every hotel and everything I went to, of course, is still USB-A. The ferries are USB-A. Everything's USB-A. So I have to remember to still bring one USB-A to USB-C cable, at least.
Well, I'm like the opposite. I'm still living in the USB-A and lightning cable world. Heather's in the USB-C world. It's like we have all the cables. And... But Alaska Airlines, which I frequently fly, they recently upgraded all their planes to be USB-C. And like every time I get on the plane, I'm like, I can't plug anything in. But Heather's over there like, oh, no problem for me. What's wrong with you? I'm like, I need my adapter. So,
it was so funny too, because the last hotel I went to, 2 USB-A plugs, 2 USB-C plugs. I'm like, finally, a hotel living in the 2010s. I can use this. Yeah. Plug into the USB-Cs. Nothing happens. I had to plug into the USB-A.
That's funny. Well, let's talk a little bit about travel. We got some lightning topic-ish things that we have. Frank sent me a list of goodies. But you and I both did some travel. I did some plane travel and boat travel, and you did some motorcycle travel. And coding on the road, I actually just submitted a talk to NDC Oslo, which was writing more code than I ever have without a computer.
Ooh.
And
define computer. Yeah.
That's also
you're doing it all with a phone tree.
Yeah, I did it all on the GitHub.
Put a quarter in and start.
So the GitHub mobile app has recently updated a lot to do a lot of this new /remote with the CLI, but also updated how you can work with agents. Previously, it was like do a thing, create a pull request. Now it's the full agent session, just like if you're in VS Code or you're in remote or something like that, or in the CLI or in anything like that. You can open a repo, tell it to do a thing, and then you create the PR. So you can iterate just like you would inside of VS Code in this virtual environment. So I've been using it to ask like in-depth questions and things like this on it, analysis, like do refinement of in-app purchases and things like that. And you have access to all the models and branches and all these things, which is very nice. So I was pretty spoiled. I was on some Alaska and Hawaiian planes that had Starlink. I don't know if you've heard of
Oh.
Starlink. In fact, you're
Ooh.
on Starlink, Frank.
Yeah, you can tell by my blurriness, my glitchiness, and my low fidelityness. No, I hope you can't. Yeah, I've been rocking the Starlink for a while, so I'm curious how a plane traveling at, I don't even know how fast planes go. Let's go with 9 billion miles an hour. How Starlink works on there. I was tempted to put it on my motorcycle because they got the Starlink Mini now. I'm like, could I
Mini.
just put it, just glue it down? Could I do that? Is that an
Well,
RV? Am I an RV then?
realize that also the planes are much closer to the satellites.
Oh, much. What are they?
About 30,000,
350 miles up, I
40
think. So
40,000 feet. So I did a fast.com test, a speed test.
okay, sure.
I got 100 megabytes down
Jeez. Okay,
and
pretty good.
50 megabytes up.
Pretty good.
That's
Pretty good. So you're the reason no one else on the airplane could use it. You're just hogging all the bandwidth, doing bandwidth tests.
everyone else is streaming Netflix and crap. I don't know.
I know, right?
It was free. It's all free. And I was like, that's crazy.
Oh,
So I
cool.
didn't actually do very much with it, but I did do a bunch of coding. I had some pretty long 6-hour, multi 6-hour flights. So I exclusively have been working on a bunch of applications, mobile applications, some Maui apps, some Swift apps, some Mac apps. And I was doing tons of dog fooding because I have it set up right now where when I do pull requests and I merge, it will kick off a build. It'll upload it to test flight. I'll get a build on my phone. So for hours, I was just revving. I think I tweeted a 10-second clip of the 24 hours 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Oh,
6,
cool.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 different sessions, 19
Oh my
sessions.
god.
And
Oh
these
my
are
god.
like huge, like I'm saying like thousands upon thousands of lines of code changes that I'm reviewing from my phone. And that's only on
Yeah.
one of the 6-hour flights, basically. I must have slang so much code exclusively from the GitHub mobile app. It was bananas. And it worked really, really well because I had internet, obviously, and good internet and streaming in these logs, asking it questions. And I worked on all sorts of different applications. And the only real problem that I had, of course, is that everything that it's being built on is a Linux machine. So if I'm doing different builds, it's not that great.
You beat me to it. That was going to be my complaint about this whole thing. Because I wasn't doing this from an airport or anything, but just this morning, I wasn't even traveling. I just couldn't really drag myself to the computer this morning, just one of those days, But I had my iPad and I was watching TV and I'm like, what if I, try to not code while coding in front of the TV with my iPad? And James, I kid you not, I had 20 agents going and I got like 15 features into iCircuit with 5 bug fixes. I felt like a supreme hacker because like everyone's always showing those shots of like, look, I've got 30 agents going and all that. I'm like, I can barely follow one at a time. But I did it. I went for the deep dive of just queuing a bunch. And I did it all from the iPad. As the author of an iPad IDE app, I believe coding on the iPad is still possible, but the best way to code on the iPad is to let an AI code on the iPad.
Yeah.
And boy, I felt productive, but I did run into that same exact frustration that it would every so often create compilation errors because it couldn't build Mac and iOS software in its dumb little Linux environment. I swear, is it only web developers that work on these agents? Like, are they aware there are other operating systems than Linux? Someone should tell them.
Well, and that's why I hadn't really thought about it. I turned off all my machines at home, but if I was really smart, I would have done a /remote on my Mac and then just had that one publicly available. I didn't think about it, but you would have done that on like each repo at a time. But I was like, oh, that would have been pretty clever to do in general. But I didn't think about that. But the one thing I have been doing, which is obviously we all have this set up, but I have been doing this, which is it codes, especially if it's doing .NET code, it can compile, but if it's Swift code, it's going to have problems. Obviously. But what I've been doing is I'll do the PR and then I obviously run the PR CI build, which is very fast, like on a Mac build host on it. And then if there's a failure, what you can do is just get a link to the build failure, go back to the thing and say, hey, go fix this stuff. And it's pretty, once you have the build and like what I've mostly seen is it struggling, and I probably don't have a good instructions file, mostly struggling with Swift 5 versus Swift 6 syntax.
Oh yeah.
That's been the big
Swift 6
issue.
Concurrency. I don't think any of the models. No human understands Swift 6 concurrency, and the models certainly don't understand Swift 6 concurrency. I can't even say the word. But that's good. That's better than nothing that you have at least that loop going. And that's what I have also. So I have some GitHub actions. So I could always kick off the action and then copy and paste. But those are compiler errors only. And so it kind of made me realize right away, and I think your loop is a little bit better than mine, because we're really the issue filing or the initial prompting, that's kind of become an important part of the job. Code reviewing has become an important part of the job. And then the last part is testing. I think we're all just becoming testers because like the code is kind of cheap now. And, AIs being AIs, they're going to cheat left and right and take shortcuts left and right. And so it's your job as a developer now is to like make sure it's not cheating and make sure it's doing a good job and to test the software. You can read the code and be like, okay, that looks like it's generally going to work. But in the case of like iCircuit, it has to like draw elements. So I needed to actually render some elements and I need to look at them and make sure they look good because it's a user-facing application. So you need to run that kind of software.
I think that I had a pretty good experience with it, but I'm not working on ginormous applications. So I think working on iCircuit or something where I want the visual validation would, I think I'll get there. I've been doing, since I had the time, the loop that I ended up having was like working on a bunch of apps, kind of moving between them and then installing from test flight, validating, going back and forth with it. It was a good loop. It was a little bit of you got to wait for test flight.
Slow loop.
So that's
where you need multiple agents going, right? That's the trick there.
And that's the trick. So that I was working on like three apps at the same time, bopping between them as I was testing them. And that was relatively beneficial. Obviously, if I was working on a Windows app, a web app would be just fine too, but be faster probably if I have that set up. So I was lucky because I had set up all that stuff ahead of time. But I was really, really productive on this trip without, I think that this time, I didn't have any laptops or anything, but I was able to do it in a way in which I felt productive, but I didn't take away from the trip at all, right? Because you could easily take away from the trip by like being on your phone and coding. But I'm like, I'm on a plane and I'm either watching a movie, sleeping, watching Netflix, or coding. And then the rest of the trip, when we were out, I wasn't on my phone at all. I said, if I'm not on a boat or on a plane, I'm not coding, right? So that was my MO. Yeah. So worked out real well. So I was impressed.
Yeah, that's a fair point. You don't want it to turn into the joke when you work for yourself is you never stop working. Some people, you can look at it both ways. You never work or you never stop working. And both are true at the same time. Somehow you're in a weird superposition of work. And I could see that easily happening on your vacation. So that's actually a really good point you make. I like making fun of you for doing all your coding at airports, but that's a good point.
It works. I don't know. It's like ready to go. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'm glad you got to experiment it as well. I think that this entire... I think we're going to see a big renaissance. It's funny because, you obviously have continuous, right? Which is about coding on your phone or on your tablet. And now I really think that it's way more viable than ever to not just write code, but to really write production code and manage things more than ever. You know what I mean? It's really kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I got to refine my own loop because what I'm taking advantage of right now is the agentic workflows. So I have an agentic workflow specifically that does deep research because I
Yeah,
love that term.
gotta have it.
And so I could go into an agent and be like, here's the issue number and have a chat with it and tell it to go look at my code, and then it has to give me all these permissions and everything, and I have to like type out all my constraints and everything. Or what I've done is I've created an agentic workflow that has, so I have my, agents.md that gives the rough idea over the repo, but then the agentic workflow really digs into what I want out of deep research. Like, go look at these
Mm,
files, all this, do all this. And so at any point in time, I can point an issue at one of those agentic workflows. And that agentic workflow does its deep research and then puts in tons of information into that issue. And then I can assign the issue to another Copilot agent that actually does the coding. So that's kind of my create the issue is my shot at describing the problem. Then there's a second planning kind of phase where it does its own research. And then the third time around is the actual coding. And I like that. That's a
yeah.
system that I'm enjoying. That's the Frank loop that I'm enjoying. The problem is you can't just add those agentic workflows to a repo very easily. It's kind of a beta system right now, and you gotta like compile it and add like 20 different files to your thing. So if the repo is all set up for it, it's easy for me. If it's not all set up for it, then I'm back into the chat window, and I don't like chat windows anymore. I think they're kind of silly. I think they're anachronistic, not to overuse that word on this
Mm,
podcast, but yeah, I think we're past it. Chat windows were so last year. I want I want buttons. I want a button that says, "Here's an issue. Go do this." Like, here are the
yeah.
stages, and go do this in each stage. I'm almost one of those people that's going to switch back to the like Kanban boards, and whenever there's a transition from this state to this state, run an AI agent with this prompt. Then it gets into that state. Then you drag it
Yeah.
into another state, run this agent with this prompt, blah, blah, blah. I'm feeling like that's almost a better system, or
Yeah, we were at
one I'm
MVP.
leaning toward.
Yeah, we were at MVP Summit. And I was in Harold's like workshop, and or maybe it was Pierce's or something. And they're like, if you're not planning or researching, you're
Mhm.
not using agents right. And what's really fascinating, especially how subagents and these research and planning things work, is I've been having the most success, especially on big tasks, like big
Mhm.
tasks. I'm
Mhm.
talking about like I'm deploying
Yeah.
fleets of
Yeah, nice.
background. I'm autopiloting
Autopilot
fleeting.
fleets, YOLO.
When you go into plan mode and you've created a plan that recommends a fleet, you've done
Oh,
something
no.
right. It's about to use a lot of tokens. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I was doing some big ones, and yeah, I was like, I take I do a big research, and then I do on that research, create a plan, and then based on the
Okay.
plan, do the implementation. Kind
Oh,
of like you're
you're 3
saying,
steps. Okay, I'm 2 steps. Issue, plan, research, those are the same step for me, and then
similar.
code. Yeah, okay.
What I do is I want to distill down the research into actionable steps into the
Yeah,
plan. Now, maybe that's kind of yours combined force,
that's
but I
what
kind of
my
do it in.
yeah, that's what I tell the agentic workflow,
Mm,
basically, like, go do your deep research, but come up with a procedural
yeah.
plan, and, what do we call it, like, ending criteria, like, validation criteria. How will you know when this has actually been implemented?
The thing I like about the research is I store the research. I store the
Mhm.
research because the research is about the thing I want to do, not the thing that I'm going to implement. So what's
Mm,
fascinating is I can then, after I implement it, I can say, hey, go double check that research and make that you actually did the implementation, not just to the plan, but if we missed anything in the deep research that maybe wasn't part of the plan.
yeah,
It's kind of like this
yeah,
revalidation loop of like, oh, and a good example of something that was missed recently in one of my applications was had something to do with in-app purchases. Oh, it had to do with
oh, no.
I did some deep research on in-app purchases, as I always do. It had to do with restore purchases with StoreKit 2. In StoreKit 2, they actually recommend that you don't call like app.sync or whatever. It's like it just called this other thing first, but that was in the research, and it was interesting. Like it implemented in a way that made sense, but then it didn't. Then it checked on the research itself because you have it. So I like to store that into a docs folder. I'm a big docs folder guy.
Oh, okay. You're one of those people. Okay.
I am.
I hate checking that stuff into the code. For me, that's what issues are for.
That's true. Yeah, I guess I could have put it in an issue, like check this issue, which has all this research in it. It just is a GIST. It just needs to be somewhere on the internet that I can tell it to go look at.
I agree with that, but I think that's where you're when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. I don't think the repo should be the code. I feel that way. Like, because the plans you're coming up with are transient. They're coming and going.
Okay, so here's the interesting part. I used to store plans. I no longer store plans.
Yeah.
I store research.
Fine. Yeah. Good. Okay. I get you. Yeah.
It's contextual research. Now, but not that it's different. I mean, it's different, but also similar. I agree with you. I don't know if it should be in the repo or not. I think that the code should be the code and the doc shouldn't be there. I agree with you on that. Because you got to keep multiple things up to date. Mm-hmm. Plans get out of date. Things evolve, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So kind of
I get you though. It's not a plan, it's research. Yeah. That makes a lot more sense, but it can still get out of sync with the code. Yeah.
Yeah. So you might want to dump it eventually, but you might say, okay, I'm going to let this linger for a little bit until maybe I ship this thing to the App Store. Maybe I refine it down, which would be interesting. But I mean, the interesting part of all of it is like how we've worked with agents are very different. It sounds like you're almost on this phase, which is really, like you said, not anti-chat window, but a little bit more less chat window, more agents running and doing things. I'd say you're almost leapfrog me in a way in that way. Ooh, I have an agentic workflow enough because they're not easy enough for me to create yet. And I like an easy button, as you know, Frank. So
they turn into easy buttons though. Once you have a few of them, and like, because you can pass an issue number to them, you can pass information to them when you invoke them. Just like the way with a GitHub action, you can just set up a set of parameters and it builds a little form, and you fill out the form when you do it. So yeah, you can come up with. They're cool. I think the worst part of them is they're just gross to create at the moment. They're difficult and gross to create, but once they're there and you have one tuned up, they're kind of fantastic.
Good to go. I like that. Yeah. All right, let's get topic number 2. Well, let's stick on to the coding stuff. Then we'll go to Tim Apple.
Oh boy.
So we did that one. Age of Agents. We're all just testers. We should talk about that. That's funny. We are just testers. Well, actually, I was Kent C. Dodds just started a new blog and a podcast, and he was saying, what was his tweet? It was, let me find it because it's a pretty interesting. It's called The Last Software Engineer was the name of his blog. And he said, we're all becoming engineers. We're all becoming product engineers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. To a point. I disagree a tiny bit because at least today, I think the AI still needs some hand holding. I don't think that they're fully engineers yet. I think
he said
in the engineering world, we distinguish between technicians and engineers. These AIs are technicians.
Here's what he said. I'm going to read this thing and we'll see if we agree or disagree. Shout out to Kent C. Dodds. Epicproduct.engineer is his website. Not the whole blog. I'm not going to read the whole blog, but I'll read this part, which is called The Arrows Are Changing. For a long time, software engineers, like archers, were judged largely by their aim. We were handed targets, build this feature, fix this bug, migrate the system, improve this metric. The best engineers are the ones who could draw the bow, account for the wind, and hit the target reliably, like Frank Krueger. That skill still matters, but the arrows are changing. AI agents are turning implementation into something closer to a homing arrow. You still have to point it in the general right direction, and the shot can still go wrong, but the arrow is getting better at finding the way to its target. That changes the scarce skill. When arrows are hard to aim, the best archer is the one with the steadiest hand. When arrows can steer themselves, more targets become reachable, and the best archer is the one who knows which target is worth hitting. Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that is the shift from software engineering as implementation to product engineering as judgment. When the cost of shooting drops, target selection matters more, not less. The problem is no longer whether you can hit the target you were given. The problem is whether the target should exist, whether hitting it could damage something else, whether there is a better target nearby, and whether the apparent bullseye is even measuring the right outcome.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree with him. I don't want to turn this into a debate about terminology and definitions, but I'm quickly and briefly going to turn this into a debate about technology, definitions and terminology. I think what he's describing is the difference between a programmer and a software engineer. I take the word engineer very seriously, because an engineer to me is someone who thinks about the customer and cost and whether something should be built or not. I know like PMs and all that have tried to usurp that position, but in the olden days, the engineers designed the bridge and then the technicians put it together. They did the hard labor of actually building the thing. And that was always the case. The engineers would design the airplane and the technicians would build the airplane. So to me, that has always been the job of the engineer, is thinking about what should be built, taking into account all the different cost factors, taking into account all the product stuff. So he wants to move the goalpost a little bit because we've diluted the term software engineer to include programming, just basic programming skills. And that's because colleges, for whatever reason, started teaching programming and calling it software engineering. But no, to me, an engineer has always had those. That was the job of the engineer. It's just software engineers have had to do both jobs. We had to be the technicians and we had to be the engineers.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's the worst kind of debating the definition of words, and those are the most useless kind of debates. So I agree with him that our jobs are changing, or at least we're putting more emphasis on the higher level stuff. Absolutely, 100% agreed. But in my mind, we're all just becoming real engineers instead of programmers.
And I think one could be say we're in some discussion on Twitter and someone was like, asking Fowler, like, how many lines of code do you write now by hand? And Fowler's like 0. He's like, I don't write code anymore. And I was
absurd.
Like, I don't really write lines of code. I mean, I changed one line. I moved a Boolean down. I don't really write very much code by hand anymore. I can, obviously, if I want to. But I don't as much anymore, even for small changes. And maybe that'll change. We'll see. But I think that regardless if I'm writing code or if I'm prompting for code, I believe that a lot of those things that Kent were talking about and you were talking about are the same. I need to decide what I should be using my keystrokes on, whether it is for a prompt or whether it is for the modifications to the code, right? So it is just how I am doing the job. It is the tools in which I am executing that thing in for. And I was talking to someone today. I said, I've been doing dotnet development for 2 decades, right? Plus. And the reason I can be really efficient, not actually only in C#, but in Swift, actually, it's pretty easy language, and in Kotlin, these languages are not that different. They're especially the latest Swifts, you know what I mean? They're different, but like I can read it. Like it was a lot easier. It's a lot easier now.
Languages,
exactly. Any object oriented, I can traverse easily. But the architecture, the things, like I'm kind of understanding, and I know these different things, especially in C#, obviously. But I can be even more proficient because like I know it. Like I know it, right? I know what it's doing. I can review it. I can test it. I can give it iterative feedback. And that's a skill that I've grown over time as I've been doing it. So it's like this new tool, just like when I got full line completion or IntelliCode or whatever, it's like just another tool in the toolbox in which I'm using for it.
I want to be clear. My pushback with the you don't write any code thing isn't like a machismo thing. Mine is purely like, sometimes it's a lot faster to go in there and fix the stupid bug than to write 1,000 words and pray that the random roll the dice is actually going to fix it the way I want. Like you have to be working on some pretty boilerplate, boring stuff if you never have to write code. If you're doing anything at all novel then it's going to make mistakes. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's way faster to just go in there and fix the stupid mistake rather than write 10 paragraphs on how to fix the mistake.
No, that's
At
true.
least for me, I'm not that fast of a typist.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about. We won't go too deep because it's still just fresh, and I don't know all the details. And obviously, I work at Microsoft and close with the folks at GitHub, but we have some changing of tides happening. We're seeing in the last few weeks, basically, some big announcements around GitHub Copilot. Mostly some changes to the individual plans for a little bit for sign up stuff, but then we're going to be finally, which this is, I don't think it's really controversial, but that definitely is change. And it's funny because there have been people on the internet that have screamed for this change at us and me even, like, why won't you do it this way? I don't like how you bill and do things today, to this other way. But basically we're moving away from request-based billing to usage-based billing, which is all around token usage and things like this. Obviously, inputs, outputs, and API calls and all these other things based on the models. And that's going to be changing in a month. Basically, the team just announced it to moving to usage-based billing with AI credits, and AI credits are used towards that. And different models have different costs associated with them. And the pricing is the same, the $10 for the Pro or the $39 for Pro Plus, and same for Business Enterprise. You get credits. You can use them throughout the month. And then you have different models that you can use, obviously, and you can bring your own key, obviously, and do all these other things. You get these AI credits, and they're used across different mechanisms, I think, in areas in which Copilot are used. So I don't know if that means like the coding agent. I'm assuming it's the coding agent online. I'm not positive, but I know that the code review agent uses the code review agent, I believe, uses action minutes. So it's different.
Yeah, it's a little confusing because even the agents, like if you assign an issue to Copilot, I believe will use action minutes and AI token stuff. So it's a and case for a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm a person that says it's sad. I'm sad because we were basically being subsidized with the request model. And the request model was wonderful, not because it made any sense. It made absolutely no sense, the request model. But it was, quite frankly, cheaper. And anytime something becomes more expensive, it's just sad. And we all get why. We knew we were using a lot more tokens than we were using requests. And so it's mostly just sad that we're gonna the free lunch is over, the subsidies are over. Satya wants his money, so we got to give Satya the money.
Well, I think
it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Mario outlined it to your extent, which is not just they want money, but it has to be sustainable. Like, any company, Anthropic, OpenAI, they're businesses, right?
I'll push back on that because we're still not paying the actual price for these things.
That's true. They're still being subsidized in
at these. Yeah, even at the ridiculous prices, the prices are about to go up a lot, but they're still not covering the cost of these machines. Let me just tell you, everyone. Go buy some GPUs and you'll find out very quickly how expensive these stupid things are.
Well, and I think it's just how these models and how we use them and the tools have evolved so much. Like, Mario writes, it's like, Copilot's not the same product it was a year ago or even 3 months ago or even last month, right? He says it's evolved as an AI editor assistant into an agentic platform, multi-step coding sessions, bigger, huger models, iterative across entire repositories, agentic coding. It's becoming the default to bring significant higher compute and inference demands. The biggest thing is like a quick chat message and a multi-hour autonomous coding session can cost the users the same amount today, which is obviously not the same cost, which is nice. But what it leads to is gaming of the system, right?
Yeah.
And when what is there? So you see these big Ralph loops and all this other stuff and these things. And the usage-based billing is not unique, right? Pretty much everyone else in the industry uses this. And funnily enough, the main reason that people didn't like request-based billing, that I heard at least, was there wasn't enough transparency. What is a request? How are requests computed? It wasn't transparent enough.
No, the transparency was, this is cheap. That's how you should reply to them. Don't worry, you're getting a deal. That's what your reply should have been to them. My biggest concern actually with the usage-based is this is not transparent. Because a token does not cost what a token costs. There are many kinds of tokens now. There are
Mm.
pre-fill tokens, there's input tokens, output
Cash
tokens, cash tokens. And none of these agent UIs expose any of that information to you. You know, there's a lot of these cash tokens expire after 5 minutes. I don't know about you, but I take 5 minutes between thinking all the time in my little agent things. And so now I'm going to feel rushed to like, oh man, if I don't keep chatting with this thing very quickly, my token's going to go stale, and now I'm going to have to pay the input token price, not the cash token price. So my concern is the transparency is just not there. And in none of these tools, this isn't even a Copilot critique. Codex, Gemini, none of these tools actually tell you what your actual costs are. You'll find out what your actual costs are if you bring your own key, because then you'll get reports from the actual providers telling you exactly what you used. But now it becomes way more important that the harness, as they say, the thing that's actually dispatching the tool calls and managing the caches and everything, that harness and its efficiency is going to become very important. Because it's going to dictate a lot about price. And sadly, that's a lot of the black box stuff right now. So I'm a little bit, there's a little bit of a rug pull here, because every new feature you get from AI providers is look at all these fancy new ways you can use more tokens, longer thinking times, longer loops, and all that stuff. And we just don't have a good transparency model for knowing how much anything is going to cost. You can send in a thing, it could cost $1 or it could cost $30. One request. You're just not going to know.
It's hard, yeah, and like you can't even predict that, because again, that's the whole point of LLMs. You can't predict their output. Like you can't predict their thing. The harness can help, obviously.
The harness can help, and I think this is going to put some onerous on the model providers to say, hey, we're using 200,000 tokens versus 50,000 tokens for a vocabulary, because when you design a model, you decide how many tokens it's going to take to represent a piece of code. That's a part of the design. Then the quality of the thinking. How many times have I seen Opus just thinking in a loop? Says, I'm going to do it this way. Oh, on second thought, I'm going to do it that way. On third thought, I'm going to go back to the first way. Oh, on second thought, I'm going to go back to... And that's just eating tokens now. So I never had to worry about that, because that was just one request. I'm like, you go in your little circles, Opus. You go have fun with that. Now I'm just going to be seeing like dollar bills. Like I hope like while it's thinking, it's just increasing a dollar bill counter, and it's going to change my habits. I don't know how yet, but it's definitely going to change my habits.
It's going to change my habits. I think of now. I went back to the early days where we had to nudge the model a lot with like information, like adding files and adding things. And now I've kind of given up. I'm like, it'll figure it out, right? But if it has to grep around your entire code base and do a bunch of stuff. So now I'm going to be tagging more. I'm going to highlight code. I'm going to do a lot more things in there. But what's interesting too is the hard part with this, and this isn't just a Copilot problem, this is an industry problem, right?
Yeah,
we're talking, not just input, output, cache, but also like inside of Anthropic, there's cache input and cache write cost to it as well, which I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
So, and then all of them are different and a lot of different prices. And we're talking like substantial, right? Because 5.4, which is a model I use a lot, is per million tokens, input $2.50, output $15 per million tokens. There's a lot less output tokens usually than input tokens. But 5.5 that just released, right? I know it's a bigger model, it's more powerful, versatile. It's twice the price. And it's $5 per million. And same with the cache. The cache goes from 25 cents to 50 cents, which is very, very fascinating. And compared to like 5.3 Codex, which is one I use a lot, is actually $1.75 per input and then $14 per output. So it's going to be a lot for us to kind of think about. I do think, interestingly enough, all of GitHub Copilot, CLI, VS Code, all this stuff are in a very fascinating situation, because they not only are allowing you to use these frontier models, but they're also allowing you to bring your own key and also run the models locally on your machine. And you and I have talked about it. I actually do think that there will become a time in which I will be able to just I mean, it's already very easy to set up local models, but I think if you're like, hey, James, use, I don't know what model is good locally, a Minimax model or
Quen.
some
Yeah, whatever.
Quen, everyone loves Quen, right? I think you're going to see this. And I think you're also going to see, I think that you'll see like a rapid rise in the next several months from everybody. And you're seeing already with like Cursor with Composer, which is based on Quen. Um, I think you're going to see all these like really super efficient models that are very good at targeted things that are giving you recommendations, right? And you might end up going with planning with a different model because it was easy before in a world where, oh, I'll just use Opus or I'll just use, the latest GPT-5 or whatever because I can, right? It's the same price or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What I'll just use it for, and then I'll use X High because why not, right? Because I'll just,
Yeah,
I never
exactly.
did. Which
One
I'll just
request,
use
who cares?
one request, whatever. But you're going to think about it more. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's good or bad. Maybe better for the environment. I don't know.
It's gonna be more complicated, but that's it. Complexity always increases. What I
Hmm.
think is gonna happen, what it would be nice, is for, um the local models won't have to solve the whole problem, but maybe the local models will become the sub-agents that are doing the
Yeah.
grepping around the code and doing the deep research and things like that. And then maybe you shove all that stuff off to Opus and such. So that's what I'm saying, where I think the harnesses need to improve. I need to be able to say, like, for these tasks, use Quen running on my 3090, but use Opus to do the orchestration and things like that. And the moment there's a cache miss, stop using Opus. Like, I want to be able to set rules up like that. Like, only do
Yeah.
this if there's going to be a cache hit. If there's not a cache hit, you can't do this. Fall back
Yeah.
to something else. And we might have to fall back to things more like Ralph loops, where we have sub-ideal models, dumber local models, just running multiple times over and over in a loop so that eventually they can produce the kind of code that maybe Gemini or Codex or Opus could have one shot in the past. So
Yeah.
I think we're just going to have complexity, and I hope the harness people will uh, up their game, because right now we have the unfortunate thing of a lot of these agent harnesses are written by the agent providers. And that's a sick cycle for us to be in, because the people charging for the models dictate how much we use the models. That's a bad situation.
Yeah.
So I think this is where the open harnesses like the VS codes and open codes, and everyone should just be out there writing their own harnesses. They can use multiple models and ideally some mix of local models. So I think this was coming. We all knew this was coming. Satya wasn't going to subsidize all our code forever. It's sad that the future will be more complex than what it's been.
Yeah, and I read an article on The Verge to this point. It wasn't about Copilot, but it was called "Your AI is no longer subsidized," and this was like pretty much looking at the entire AI industry and looking at many products across many providers, not just model providers, but other industries. And you can think it was like Uber, right? Remember when Uber started? Super subsidized.
So
You get an
cheap.
Uber for like free. Now you're gonna get to the airport and $100, right?
Yeah.
And you know, um, and it's not, it's just like the difference is these models not just have gotten so much better, but the price of them have gone up, and also
Mhm.
the context windows have gone up, and like all this stuff. So our expectations have risen for these things. So it'd be really fascinating to see how it goes. I'm intrigued by all of it. I'm excited to give everything a try, and in general, it's not new, right? If you move to you have Cloud Code or Codex or Cursor or they're all like the same. Everything is this
Yeah.
consumption or usage based model. So if anything, just falling in line and see how it goes, and go
Yeah.
from there.
That's it. I just wanna I'm begging the industry and hoping the industry realizes that I'm just repeat myself, but that the harnesses have to keep up with these new pricing changes. Like, we can't have
And they
these
need to
pricing changes and
optimize.
still have these crazy harness. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
These current harnesses that are running Opus sub agents, no, those are gone now.
No.
We
Yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally agree. Well, let's go on to another topic. Let's go on to something a little bit in the wheelhouse that we've been talking a lot about, obviously, agents and remote agents and pricing changes. Let's talk about a change in leadership.
Oh,
with our good friend Tim Cook, who's no
so
longer
we're
cooking at Apple.
replacing Tim Cook with what now? Opus? What are we replacing Tim Cook with? No, this is sad. End of an era. I don't know. I'm a little bit excited and a little bit afraid, as all good change should provide. Yes, if you don't know, Tim Cook is not quite retiring. He's still going to be on the board of directors, but he's stepping away from the CEO position and putting a hardware dude in for the CEO. It's a dude.
John Turnus.
It's always a dude. I've never heard of him. I guess he's been on some of the WWDCs, but I haven't really paid attention to him. But he's been around for 20 years. I was a little bit nervous when I first heard him because as a hardware person, I've been a little bit frustrated with the iPhone and the iPad because those devices really haven't updated in the last 10 years, 15 years. It's been a while. Like the iPad was last released in 2010. It's been 16 years of basically no change to the iPad. So I was a little bit nervous that we're getting someone conservative, but I was just reading an article and someone said the opposite, that this guy has always pushed for bigger changes at Apple, and it just hasn't happened. Maybe Tim Cook was the slowing factor there. And to the point where like we might even get some new form factors. That would be amazing, Apple, if you could, improve upon the devices. You revolutionized the world once. You're allowed to do it a second time. It's okay. So always nervous about things changing, but Apple's in a good place, and I think they could use a little bit of a shakeup. And so I'm here for a little bit of a shakeup. How about you?
Well, Tim's 65, right? So it's retirement age. I think Tim's been there for a while.
He's going to get his Social Security back.
He's ready to. Yeah, I think that's what he needs, a Social Security check. I think Tim's just doing just fine. When I type in John Turnus, I've definitely seen this gentleman on WWDC, or I've seen him at different Apple events, hardware events. And there's pivotal changes in any company, and CEO change is usually relatively pivotal at some regard. I don't know I don't know about CEOs in general. I've worked at companies where I didn't even know the CEO, and then obviously, I know Satya. But I think that there's really hands-on CEOs, and there's other CEOs that are just like CEO, right? And some super direction-y and some less direction-y. And I don't know where Tim sat in that. Maybe somewhere in the middle, maybe more towards division. I don't know. No. At different times in his tenure, maybe it pivoted a little bit. It's hard to say.
I think everyone's got their strengths. Some CEOs are business people, and their whole job is make the stock price go up and kowtow to the government and that kind of stuff. I think Tim Cook was the operations CEO, where he made sure that Apple produced good hardware on time, got good deals with all the people doing their manufacturing and all that stuff. I think that's what Tim Cook's going to be known for, is the operations guy. I'm hoping the new guy is going to be a device guy, a little bit of a return to a Steve Jobs, where he has some taste and some opinions. It'd be nice to have opinions again. See also my rant about iPhones not changing in 18 years.
well, so like, yeah, is it time for the iPhone to change? Like when we say iPhone changing, do we mean that it is another? Okay, so with Nintendo, right, which I'm a big fan of, right? They always had a portable console, and then they had a home console, right? And sometimes they would end up having like a squishy middle console that would kind of like fit in there. Not really sure. XYZ. Maybe it's like an iteration of the existing hardware, like the Game Boy, like Micro or whatever. And then they have the 3DS or the DSi, or these different ones in there. And obviously more recently they've squished it together into the Switch, right? That's 2-in-1 form factor. So the question really is, like, when it comes to Apple hardware, we obviously have an iPad, we also have a Mac, we also have a MacBook. I also have an iPhone, right? We have different accessories. But is it another device that you're going to have with you, or is it a all in, or is it a this or that? So what I mean is, right now in the world of most devices, let's say foldable phones, which is what we're talking about, which today usually all manufacturers are, here is a phone and then here is a foldable phone. You pick what you're going for, right? And that is an option. Like, the question is, like, is it a bold decision to be like, this is the future of iPhone? Because here, when I think of foldable phones, everything seems like and here's a foldable phone. It's not, here is the future of phones. Like, I do not believe, I've not seen a foldable phone. I've seen not very many people use foldable phones. I've seen them, but and I've had one at the Surface Duo for testing, and cool device. Yeah, totally. But it seems like we can't get out of this form factor, this brick in our phones. The question is, are we going to have a foldable brick that is like, this is the future type of thing?
Okay, so foldable iPhone, yeah, that's the big rumor, but it's been the big rumor for the last
Forever.
5 years. So I'm not even saying whether it's going to happen or not. Plus, hardware takes years to develop. So let's say he comes in September and says, we need a foldable phone. It could take 2 years. Or they could have started working on the foldable phone 2 years ago, and that would have been under Tim Cook's auspices. Yeah. So this whole foldable phone, it's not even 100% what I'm talking about. I'm talking about touchscreen Macs. Why haven't we gotten those yet? I'm talking about whatever happened to the iPod Touch. Why can't I buy an iPhone that's not a stupid phone? Because you know what? All I get is phone calls are spam. I don't need a phone. Yeah. I want a device that fits in my pocket. That form factor, a hunk of metal that fits in my pocket, good, fine. We can keep that. We can put different screens on it. I would take an iPhone that has a back screen and a front screen. Why not? It doesn't have to fold. I'm just saying, there's a hunk of metal that's going to go in my pocket. That's probably going to happen because my wrist isn't big enough screen real estate wise. My little AirPods, no visual element. Maybe it's going to be some sunglasses with some little projectors on them. I don't care. But all I can say is the Mac hasn't changed in 30 years, or the MacBook, the laptop.
Yeah.
The iPad hasn't changed since 2010. It's improved, but it hasn't changed. The iPhone hasn't changed since 2008. It's improved, but it hasn't changed. So I'm just looking for something. I love my Vision, but it was overly expensive, too heavy, too many negatives, and they haven't improved it. They just haven't. So, and
it's
please
true.
don't wait about the update. So it's not even, yeah, I hope that's my point. It's not just that I'm looking forward to a foldable phone, though I'm totally here for it. I want to see something change, something improve, something.
I think that's a great point. iPads have been iPads. They've gotten different sizes, different things, faster. Mac, same thing. And like, even the Neo, the Air, the Pro, even the Mac Mini, we've had Mac Minis. We've had them forever. Yep. And maybe there's the Mac Studio, which is a bigger Mac Mini, right? So it's like, okay, cool.
Fat Mac Mini.
Watches.
Not so mini.
We've had watches
could have been
forever.
something, but they didn't put a real operating system on it. Renovate WatchOS. Put iOS on the watch. And now we got something.
TV? The Apple TV hasn't changed forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, So Tim Cook's done a great job from a corporate business perspective, but he has not done a great job from a hardware company perspective. They've been too conservative. So I'm here for some shakeup.
I like cool hardware. I'm a big
exactly.
You
love cool hardware more than I do. You should be on board.
Dude, I love cool hardware. I love cool hardware. And I think, for the longest of times, I was always like really big into Kickstarter because people were doing crazy stuff. Even when we're making fun of the little rabbit device and the thing that you wear. People are doing funky stuff. You know what I mean? I like cool hardware. Hardware's cool.
Yeah.
Hardware's fun because I can't make it. I'm not a hardware guy.
And it's tough for Apple because they have to do things in such quantity. If the product doesn't make them $1 billion, it's a failure. So that stinks. I get it. Big companies, it's hard. But if the big companies can't do it and the little companies can't do it, then no one's going to do it. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to take some chances.
Someone's got to do it. Oh, well, let us know what you want from Apple. I think any of those ideas are cool, to be honest with you. I'm down for a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I think that I think there's a bunch of industries, even like non-phone industries. I really want like arcade stuff and pinball stuff. I want to evolve. There's a bunch of stuff I love. You know what I really want to evolve? So if there's any people at the Gadget people, wine fridges. I'll tell you why. Okay.
Okay. Wow, that came out of nowhere, everyone.
Imagine a wine fridge in which you put your wine in and it self-identifies the wine that you put in. It can understand the ideal temperatures for that wine, the ideal age for that time, give you recommendations for the wine, and it could transmit that data either to your phone. It's all QR codes. Or it's all like barcodes. But it could even have some cool touch screen thing, and you could swipe through it. And ideally, when you open it, you say, "Give me this Pinot," and then you open it, and it's like, "Here's your Pinot," right? I think that, and that's cool hardware. Like that's a good use of AI. But I think that there's all sorts of crazy things you do. Like a good example is, Frank, look at this. See how some are green now? This is the battery. I'm going back to this battery.
That's some cool hardware you got there.
Look at this. This is cool hardware. Look at these. They didn't have to put these lights here. They didn't have to do that. They didn't have. That's warm. They didn't have to do that. These batteries are charging. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And that is really fascinating. Co-share. I'm sure that's great. I'm sure it's.
I'm sure you're saying it perfectly.
I'm sure it's not going to blow up. But cool hardware. Check out this. You ready? You see this is a USB. This is a USB 128 gigs. You see that's 128. That's 128 gigs.
So many gigs.
Watch this. Ready? I'm holding up a USB stick. You see that?
Oh, it got bigger and smaller. Why does it get bigger and smaller? Oh, so the little
hides the USB. Boom.
Yeah.
You see that? That's cool hardware. They didn't have to do. So that's the thing. So that's where I think, right? I think cool hardware and cool design, you get it. And you're like, you know what? They didn't have to do that. They decided to do that. And that to me is like a magic moment. And same in software, by the way. It's like they didn't have to do that thing, but they decided to do it.
Yeah.
And that is high quality software.
Good.
High quality hardware. Yeah.
And maybe we'll get that with the new CEO. Or maybe we won't. Who knows? But at least there's an opportunity now with a change of leadership. Yeah. So bye, Tim Cook. We enjoyed your products, but always let's look forward to the future.
Yes. Let's do it. All right. Well, let's look forward to ending this podcast and getting out of here. That's going to do it for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next week, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Krueger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.